Question. There are actually two questions here, but they are both on the same topic. So one, what is a natural planet? Have you been on other planets? I'm thinking it's something I grasp with the linear mind, so it doesn't make sense. And question two, hi Kim, I have a question about Earth being called an unnatural planet. Maybe it's my way of interpreting that term, but it feels as if our planet was some kind of punishment. I believe I get what you mean in a sense, because I'm aware of wars and all the things that originate at the level of separation. But also, I can think of beautiful moments and situations that are produced thanks to this planet. A beautiful sunrise on the beach, or the moon rising above the mountains. The possibility to love, loving a family member, sharing moments with people we appreciate. What about the beauty this planet has? All these beautiful events are taking place in this hellhole. So it gets confusing to assimilate that term. Could you elaborate some more, please? Thank you. Okay, so I understand that when you're new to this term of a natural planet, it can be confusing. It takes a little getting used to. But that's basically the case with anything new you encounter on the spiritual path. And of course, the spiritual path is we're constantly encountering new concepts. That's the whole idea of walking a spiritual path. Otherwise, we'd be sitting in our Christian churches waiting for Jesus to come and save us. So the term natural planet is used deliberately. I mean, it's something chosen by the Ascended Masters, and they're using it in order to provoke people's thought process. Because when we look at the word natural here on Earth, we tend to think that, oh, natural is nature. And what is unnatural is what we human beings have created. And what the Masters want us to realize is that many of the things on Earth, many of the elements of Earth is actually affected by us humans. In fact, almost everything on Earth is affected by us humans. And that's what it means that the Earth is a natural planet. So let's just take one thing that one questioner mentions, war. This is not natural, right? You look at nature. I've said it before, you take a walk in the forest. And here's an anthill over there on that side of the trail. There's an anthill over there on the other side of the trail. They don't go to war with each other, right? There are no natural species that goes to a systematic process of killing members of its own species. So this is obviously unnatural, even as we see nature on Earth. But what it really means that Earth is an unnatural planet is that any planet is just an environment for the inhabitants to basically have the experience they want to have, we could say, in the most neutral way. We can say it's an experience machine. But when a planet is created, when the inhabitants, original inhabitants were first sent to that planet. So let's take Earth. Earth was created in a natural state. When the first inhabitants were sent here, they had, what I've talked about in many of my videos, they started at the 48th level of consciousness, which means they had an intuitive sense of being connected to something outside their own minds. And that something is their higher selves, their higher presences, and their spiritual teachers, the Ascended Masters. So this is how the Earth was originally created. And this is, therefore, in a higher sense than the way we normally use the term, this is the natural state. That the inhabitants see themselves as connected to something outside their own minds. And that connection happens to what I've called the one mind, or the Christ consciousness, or the Buddha nature. There's a mind that we are all created out of, and it connects us all. So the natural state is we have the vertical sense of connection to our spiritual selves and spiritual teachers, and we at the same time have the horizontal connection to each other. So we don't see each other as competitors or enemies. And we actually see that by working together, we can achieve much more than we can do separately, which of course many people also see now. Another way to explain this is to say that you have the golden rule, which is mentioned in most religions on earth. Don't do unto others what you don't want them to do to you. And that is natural on a natural planet. And this means you can cooperate. And you see, of course, many people who have embodied this golden rule, even if they're not openly religious. They're treating other people right. And therefore, you see many nations that have achieved, like the democratic nations, a greater degree of cooperation. And basically, the emergence of democracy is one of the major signs that the Earth is in an upward spiral that is moving towards the state of again becoming a natural planet. So that's why you also, of course, have much beauty in nature. It's not like human beings have destroyed everything on Earth, but they have greatly affected things. Like the Ascended Masters say, for example, that there is a correspondence between the collective consciousness of all human beings on Earth and certain physical properties of the planet. For example, the lower the consciousness, the more dense matter becomes. I know this can be difficult to visualize, but one of the effects of this density of matter is that our bodies have a limited lifespan. There, even in the Bible, there are talks about in ancient times people lived longer, 800 years or so. So the denser the matter becomes, the denser our bodies become, and the shorter the lifespan. It's also why you have these many religions or spiritual teachings talk about a lost paradise. Well, the lost paradise was the natural state, because in the natural state you don't have to, as the Bible says, work at the sweat of the brow to feed the body, because you can use the powers of the mind to precipitate what's needed to feed the body. And therefore you don't have lack of resources, you don't have poverty, you don't have starvation and all these things. So the Earth, you know, the one questioner says it feels like the Earth is a punishment. No, it's not a punishment. The Earth was originally created as a natural planet. It was the inhabitants of the Earth, and I've explained this. I explained this especially in my video about how the world was created. So if you're interested in this topic, watch that video. But it was the inhabitants of the Earth at a certain point that went so low in consciousness they became self-centered and selfish, started to force each other to conform, that they brought the Earth to a state where it was no longer a natural planet. But of course, the whole purpose of the Ascended Masters giving spiritual teachings is that many of us are avatars, as I explained in my playlist about avatar psychology, and also in my video about how the world was created, who are here to help bring the Earth back to a state of being a natural planet. So there's no punishment here. It's just that a planet is a rather flexible thing. We tend to go up and think that, oh, the planet is just the way it is and there's nothing we can do about it. But what the Masters are trying to help us see is that there is a very, very clear correspondence between our collective state of consciousness and the state of the planet. And so a planet is so flexible that it can give people many different experiences. And when a majority of the people on Earth in an ancient time went below a certain threshold of consciousness, the Earth became denser. And that's why you see these limited lifespan, you have to work to feed the body, you have diseases, and you have conflicts and all of these things. So this is not a punishment. This is a planet adapting to people's state of consciousness. It's actually free will outplaying itself, because if people decide that they want to have the experience that you can only have through the duality consciousness and separation, where you're in competition with others and you're right and they're wrong and this kind of thing, then the planet adapts and gives you that experience. And basically you can say, if you really want to look at the basic dynamic on any planet, is a planet is an experience machine, a reality simulator. And that means that people can have any experience they want to have, and they can believe it's real. And this means that when people decide to go into the state of separation, what are they really doing? As I've said, you have the two states. You can see yourself as a connected being, you're connected to something outside your own mind, or you can go into separation where you use the duality consciousness to make yourself believe that you're a separate being. When you are in the state of connection, you're realizing your mind is not defining reality. There's a reality outside your mind, and you're in the process of discovering what that reality is. When you go into separation, you're saying, I want to experience what it's like if my mind is discovering or is defining what is real and unreal. And if I say something is real, then it's going to be real. Right? So, but basically what you are saying when you're going into duality, without realizing it, is you are not wanting, I know this sounds contradictory, but you are not wanting to take responsibility for your state of mind. And therefore, even though you are thinking, you're not really thinking this consciously, but you are thinking that your mind can define what reality is like, you're not actually accepting that the planet outpictures what is in your mind. And that's why, even though you may think that, for example, your religious beliefs, you are Christian, and your Christian beliefs define what God is like and what the world is like, you're not actually admitting that it is your state of consciousness that is reflected in the physical conditions on earth. So therefore, you are not admitting that the earth is a product of the collective state of consciousness. This means that people are actually, when they go into separation, they are actually wanting to believe that they live in a world that isn't affected by their minds. And therefore they don't need to change their state of mind. They can keep believing that they are right. And if they just keep believing in the Christian doctrines, one day Jesus is going to come and save them. You see what I'm saying? It's very contradictory. But once you see the contradiction, you realize that it makes sense. People think, in a sense, that their Christian beliefs define that God is obligated to come and save them if they say, oh, Jesus, you're my Lord and Savior. But at the same time, they don't want to admit that they have created all the poverty and the lack of resources and the conflicts and destruction that you see on earth. They want to believe that God defined the world this way, or that scientific materialists, the laws of nature made the planet this way. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not a product of our minds. And that's why the earth it's not punishment. It's really free will being allowed to outplay itself so that people can experience the physical conditions that are a reflection of their state of mind. And as I've said before, this is the school of hard knocks. When you're connected and you're working with the spiritual teachers, you realize that your state of mind, the only way to change your outer circumstance really is to change your state of mind. When you go into separation, you refuse to see this. And therefore, you're thinking the only way to change your outer conditions is to change other people and force other people. And that's what creates all the conflicts. And the only way out of this, because the Ascended Master can't violate people's free will. There are Christians who believe that any day now, probably tomorrow, if not tomorrow, then the day after tomorrow, or at least next week, Jesus is going to appear in the sky in some undeniable manifestation, and all people on earth are going to be forced to see that Jesus is real, and therefore these Christians were right. But that's a violation of free will. That's not going to happen. So once people go into separation, they're in the school of hard knocks, and it's just a matter of how hard do the knocks have to become before people start saying, oh, is there something I could change? Is there something I need to change? Do I need to look at the beam in my own eye? And therefore, the earth is not punishment. People are punishing themselves. And it's just a matter of how long are you going to keep this madness up?